My name is Kevin Ronald Tamati. My name is Kevin Ronald Tamati, born on the 21st of September 1953 to Sandy or Narariko Sandy Tamati and Eden Regan Happy ni Tamati or ni Happy. We lived at Bridgepa. I'm the third eldest child, son of Sandy and Alan, or Regan. I'm preceded by my oldest brother Henry, and then Michael. Following me is another brother John, Maxine, who has departed this world, then Sandra, Diane, David, Jenny and Christine. Two other of my brothers and sisters or siblings died at birth, so we had a family of 12 and we lived at Bridgepa. In the earlier days, I suppose, when there were three of us, Henry, Michael, myself, and I was the baby, we lived at my grandparents' house down Ngātarawa Road, and we lived in the batch at the back of the old house. I can't remember much of it, but I have seen photos of myself in an old pushchair. We look like refugees, third world Māori kids from Pohara surrounds, upbringing. And that proved to be the case later on in life, as I guess Mum and Dad were able to work their way down the list of Māori Affairs homes that were made available to our whānau out at Bridgepa. We eventually moved into our own home down Raukawa Road, a brand new Māori Affairs home. I guess we moved in probably about 1960, I suppose. Whilst it was flash and new, it was cold and horrible in the winter because there was no insulation in it, and our warmth was either around the fire in the kitchen or the oven or stove in the kitchen, and at the other end of the house was the lounge with a big open fire that I hated lighting because you knew you had to clean the bloody thing out the next day. So growing up in Bridgepa was great. We had all the freedom that anyone could want. We had our own aquatic centre, which was the bridge that crossed over the creek that runs through Bridgepa, which on one side of Raukawa Road is the Paritua, I think it is, and on the other side is and I can't even remember the name of it. But at the bridge there as kids during the summer, we used to. The deep end was on the downside of the river, so that had a big swimming hole in it, and the other end was the up end of the bridge was the shallow end, so it was pretty good. And we not only used to swim in it, but we used to go eeling in it and pick watercress and catch crayfish in there as well. So it was pretty good. The farmers that lived around Bridge Pa had a pretty good relationship with the whānau, in terms of offering work, sharing, docking, fencing, all that to the whānau of Bridge Pa. Eventually, as the number of houses increased, so too did the number of sharing contractors increase in Bridge Pa. I think I remember Uncle Charlie Wanui telling me that there may have been 60 houses at one time in Bridge Pa, and half of those houses there was a shearing contractor in. So it was pretty good going in terms of farming and getting work for other whānau members, because they were all out increasing the number of sheds that I guess they all had. So through the shearing season, there was plenty of work. A lot of the whānau worked either in the shed or at the freezing works, watties and bird's eyes. So way back in the day, there wasn't, well, to what I understand anyway, there wasn't a lot of unemployment around Bridge Pa, so we were pretty well off, and it wasn't what's the word I'm looking for? It wasn't a village that people grew lazy in. There was always work, whether it was shearing or working in the freezing works or at watties and bird's eyes. There were also trees, the forestry. There was work at the guavas forest, planting trees that was available. And farmers were pretty generous in that they needed labour, so there was a lot of farmers right out Raikakaho, Kiriru, right out to Takapo, I suppose, right down central Hawke's Bay. Being number 3 in the family had its moments. I guess as far as health is concerned, I was diagnosed earlier on in my time as having rheumatic fever. So I spent quite a bit of time in hospital, and yeah, being a sports fanatic like I was, I loved rugby. I lived for rugby actually, and as all the other sports came along, it was all about just wanting to play rugby. So there was basketball. We used to play a lot of basketball in the chapel at home. Golf, as much as we weren't allowed to go down and play at the Bridge Park golf course, we did, and so started to enjoy and learn how to play golf properly. But most definitely the favourite of the sports when I was at school was rugby. Then it was hockey second, and softball and cricket in the summer. But with having rheumatic fever, I'd made the Hastings Ross Shield team in the 60s, early 60s, I think, and I got told that after getting into the Ross Shield, I think it was a year later, 12, I think I might have been 12, 13 at the time, the doctor told Mum and Dad that I had rheumatic fever and I wasn't allowed to play sports ever again, and for the rest of my time I'd be living on penicillin tablets. Man, they were horrible. But as things would have it, thankfully I was able to somehow live with the rheumatic fever illness that I had. And I know when I went to high school, I was definitely told by the doctor then, first year at high school, that I wasn't allowed to play sport. So I didn't think, well, I thought the doctor said that I wasn't allowed to run around. So I ended up playing hockey for the second 11, but I was goalkeeper for the first 2 years at the high school. I played hockey, and I was probably the worst goalkeeper that the school second 11 had. And in my final year at Hastings Boys High, I managed to convince my mother to let me play rugby. So I lined up in the fifth form, had trials for the first 15, got in the first 15 and did quite well. I played fullback, standoff, or first five at the time. I remember playing, the most memorable game was against Gisborne Boys High. We played them at Hastings Boys High at our school, and on the Friday when they came down on their bus, we stood at the front of the school and we greeted them, and I was watching these guys stand up and get off their bus, and they were monsters. They ended up in our game on Saturday flogging us 68-3, and I kicked the penalty to give us the 3 points. So that was my memorable time in Hastings first 15, and then I finished school and went down to Wellington and started playing rugby league.